Hello and welcome everyone to another video. In this video we'll be talking about trend trading strategies. The topics that we will cover will be: what is a trend? How do you identify a trend? And here I'll show you a very nice tool that you can use. I'm talking about how you can anchor VWAP to assess the strength or the weakness and to assess who's in control, buyers or sellers. Okay? And then we'll take a look at what's a trend trade. Are you trying to trade a pullback trend trade or a breakout trend trade? What's the difference? We'll take a look at that. And lastly, we'll go through an example of a trend trade so that you guys can really get this down. Okay then, so with no further ado, let's get into the video. What is a trend? Okay, a trend is simply a market that is moving predominantly in one direction. Look at this here. So this here is a bullish trend because we have higher highs and higher lows, higher high, higher low. And a bearish trend is the opposite. Okay, it's lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. And notice how the market is moving predominantly in one direction. Okay, that's it for the trends. Let's now take a look at how to identify a trend. Okay guys, we're here at the pound. Let's take a look at this. We clearly see that the structure has been making higher highs, higher lows, higher high, higher low, higher highs, higher low, higher high. So we know that this here has been in an uptrend, and right now market is coming down. So let's use a classical tool, the trend line. Let's plot it in. I want to show you the difference between the trend line and using an anchor VWAP. So what information do we get? The trend line shows us that we broke out of it right here. So what's happening? Is this a reversal, or are we making a correction to go up, right? Is this a pullback, or is it another three-wave structure to go up? We don't know right now. We don't know. The trend line doesn't tell us much. It only tells us that when it broke here that we might be in a reversal, or we might be in a bigger correction. As of now, there's not enough information. There's not enough data on the chart. Another thing to notice here is that this is the most recent higher low, and we're currently breaking it. This is also a signal. It's also indicating that a change might be happening, but this change can either be, again, a reversal to go down, or a correction or a pullback to continue up. So let's take a look at the VWAP, anchor VWAP tool, right? Anchored VWAP tool that you have access to in Tradingview. This is a tool that you can plot anywhere, and you would usually do it in the beginning of an impulse, or the beginning of an uptrend, or a significant level if a gap happened, or if there was some big news or big volume spikes as well. Look at this volume spike here. It correlates with this move here, right? With this uptrend here. So I would also plot a VWAP here. What this tells us is the strength of the market. We can quickly assess who's in control by plotting in the weighted volume average price, which is the VWAP, and I'm not gonna go into detail about what the VWAP is in this video, guys, okay? I'm just gonna show you how you can use it, and then you can play around with it, but see how effective it can be. This, I plotted one here, right? In this impulse here. Look at how when it came up, came down to VWAP, bounced up, bounced up, bounced up, bounced up, and then came down. So here we know now that, okay, right now buyers are not in control in this current market, in this impulse, but the longer term trend though is still intact. We know that because the VWAP from the start of the trend is still here. This is an area, a level of interest now that might attract the price, right? But as of this moment, the information I have right now is that just by looking at it, that sellers are gaining control right now. So if market starts pulling back to VWAP, I now suddenly have information, I have data that indicates, especially if we start rejecting in this area and coming down, that a reversal might actually be happening. Okay? And I would not have this information without this VWAP. Because if price was coming up, I would not know, like, is it coming up here or whatever, right? But VWAP is giving me a clear area where I can objectively assess who's in control, the buyers or the sellers, who's strong right now. And remember that the market is fractal in nature. This is why it's also important to look at higher time frame trends. Okay, let's take a look at the higher picture here. So you would also look at this downtrend here, and you would be able to use the VWAP by, let's take the VWAP from the beginning of this down move. We see that the sellers, look at how many times it bounced off, and look at the market right now. There's a potential. By looking at the higher time frame, we know that, okay, there's actually a potential that market might come up here, but as long as we're below this, then the daily time frame, the 4-hour time frame, the higher time frames are clearly in a downtrend. So overall, market is bearish. But if we then go down to the lower time frames and we start analyzing and looking for, okay, entries, well, now we know that major market is in a downtrend, it's coming down, so there's a good chance that, okay, this could actually be a reversal, and this current strength right now is bearish. But this, remember, doesn't mean that you're just gonna sell. Wait to see what's gonna happen, and then watch this trend here. You have the strength of this trend is plotted in this VWAP here. So I know that this is a lot of information at once, but this is what trading is about. You need to process a lot of information and know what's happening on multi time frames, because a lot is happening, right? There's a lot of data. And if you want to heighten the success of your trades, if you want to heighten the probability of your trade working, then you need to plan out and attack the markets in a way that heightens your probability of success, guys. Okay? And this is one way of doing it. By using anchored VWAP, you can tell who's in control, buyers or sellers, on what time frame. Okay, now let's take a look at what a trend trade is and the different categories of a trend trade. So this is how I have categorized it, at least. When I look at a trend trade, obviously market has to be in a trend, as we just underlined, and as you understand now, this is a trend. So next step is we need a pullback. So this is our pullback here. So we have a trend and market is pulling back. So I have then further categorized the trading opportunities that I take into 3 categories. And those categories are an extreme level trend trade, a flag trend trade, and a breakout trend trade. So let's take a look at this structure here. Let's just start with the extreme level trend trade. This is a trade that I take at the bottom here. You have to be more advanced, and it's really not for the beginner because you're trying to pick the bottom of the trade. This is what I call an extreme level trend trade because it's at an extreme level basically. It's also known as, simply a reversal, but I just call it an extreme level. Okay, the next possible way of taking a trend trade is you wait for a flag, and I call this a flag trend trade, right? So if I get a push up here and market starts giving me some kind of correction, sideways correction, a flag, some kind of pattern, then I trade that and I get this next impulse up. Okay? The last way is a breakout trade. Breakout trend trade. Okay? So I see that I have the high point is right up here. And when market is coming up to this point, then I look for it to break out of this structure and I look to take a trade right up here, right? For it to break out and break into a trend. This trade is also a bit harder because you have to be able to read the momentum and volume and if momentum is shifting in the market, because for this trade to work out you need something to push prices higher. You need a lot of demand. This is why for the beginner the easiest trade to get in a trend trade scenario is the flag trend trade. Okay, we then wait for this pattern to happen. So let's just go back, right? Step one, you want a trend. You want the market to be in a trend. The higher time frame has to be in a trend. This is the higher time frame. Then you wait for some kind of a pullback, a bigger structure. Here we have a three-wave structure. Okay, then there's three possibilities, right? We can either take a trade from the extreme level, we can wait for this scenario, or we can take a trade up here, a breakout for the continuation of the trend. And all of these three trade possibilities, they target the continuation of the trend. Look at this. You have an impulse here, and this is the impulse you're looking for. You're looking for another impulse to go up. So you're trying to catch this higher time frame move, and you do this by going to lower time frames. And on the lower time frames, you look for ways to enter the trade. Okay, and you look for strength if the market is actually going to continue up. Okay, now let's take a look at an example. Let's go. Let's take a look at the DAX. We clearly see that the DAX is in an uptrend. We have higher highs, higher lows. And I have plotted some VWAPs in from the beginning of this trend here and from here, because there's a lot of volume in this area, and another one here again because we got a volume spike. So I'm just looking at the strength of the uptrend in like stages. I'm looking at beginning of a trend, middle of the trend, and the current trend. And then I have another VWAP up here that I anchored to see the strength of these recent sellers because market started going down. Okay, so all in all, we have our uptrend and we have this pullback here, right? Which is a three-wave correction, by the way, a contracting flat. So look at this here. A contracting flag doesn't really give you the opportunity for an extreme level trend trade because it happened so fast. But we got, let's go to the 15-minute. But we got a clear flag trend trade, or in this case it's more of a corrective pattern, right? We have our major uptrend, so we have our direction, which is up, so we're looking for continuation to go up. We have some kind of a pullback, and we know just by looking at the VWAPs that buyers are clearly in control. And look at this here, market spiked up, made this mess, and then it came up. I'm in this trade right now, and I'll show you how I got it, or how I got into it. You use these VWAPs to time your entries, because you see, look at this one here, the green one. Look at how price actually stayed below. Sellers, they tried to gain some control, but they couldn't. We broke up then we come back down. And in this moment here, I was actually looking for the price to go down to this VWAP, anchor VWAP, and then possibly bounce. Well, that didn't happen. We spiked up. And look at then how market came down back to this VWAP here, this anchored VWAP that previously acted as strong resistance. And now we're just, doing absolutely nothing. But look at this strong candle here. When we closed like that, that was the time to enter for me, because not only did we bounce off this anchor VWAP, but we also broke the red one. And the red one I plotted here from the beginning of this downtrend. So this one gave me an idea of the sellers of their average price. And the moment we also closed above it, and remember, this is in confluence with that we are in an uptrend. The market, the higher time frame market, is pushing up. We have a possible three-wave correction, a pattern that we know happens and forms in the market over and over again, this one, and it's then in combination with this flag trend trade, right? Here where we correct. And then the last leg, or like the final steps to this trade, because the analysis is check, 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 then we use these VWAPs, anchor VWAPs, to time our entry with an understanding of how patterns form. Because look at this here. We have sharp move, what looks like a B wave here. Look at this, a small degree of correction, an impulse up, another sharp move down. And in here, we actually have another contracting flat. But the essential about this is that it also correlates with it bouncing off this VWAP and breaking above this VWAP, which indicates, which shows you the strength of the sellers. And by breaking with such a strong candle here, we obviously, or not we, but whoever was selling and trying to push the market down, lost control. So this is, VWAP gives you an objective way to assess who's in control and who's not, and a way to time your entries. Alright, that this is a good place to enter. And look at this right now. Again, looks like a three-wave correction, so I'm still staying in the trade. Right now, if market breaks this, then a good place to place your stop would be below this now. And I would just follow it, right? Because everything indicates that this is still in a strong uptrend. Okay guys, I think this is a good time to end the video. I hope that you got a lot of value from it. So let's end it here guys. Thanks for watching.